This week's episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Found Penny Studio. Found Penny Studio is exclusively fulfilling our Patreon Tier 3 merchandise perk by doing what they do best, creating to celebrate everyday moments like your favorite TV series. Check out Found Penny Studio's creations at foundpennystudio.com and find Couch Potatoes Unite on Patreon at www.patreon.com/couchpotatoesunite.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because first came me and Dad said gee, and then came me and Mom said we, and by me I guess I mean the blog, and by me I guess I mean the podcast. Hey, I didn't write this cheer, I'm just stealing it. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For at Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, via Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon Music to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including, but not limited to, Supernatural, Orange is the New Black, Gotham, the Marvel shows on Netflix, Stranger Things, iZombie, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, and Riverdale. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Fuller House, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Will and Grace, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Crown. We'll be launching new panels covering The Orville, Big Little Lies, The Good Doctor, Call the Midwife, and The Animaniacs. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends, and we'll cry Bazinga for Big Bang Theory. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these semi-quarantine times. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to our website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just don't drag us to rehab group therapy to air your grievances. It doesn't have to get that far. Today, we're around the water cooler and continuing a catching up mini-series recently launched here at the CPU Water Cooler, in which we discuss a hit multi-season romantic family drama that airs on NBC. The show is This Is Us, and this is the second of a 4-part mini-series in which CPU catches up on the show. In this episode, part 2 of this mini-series, we're discussing season 2, which aired on NBC from September 26, 2017 to March 13, 2018, with a total of 18 episodes. We will discuss each subsequent available season in each new episode of our catch-up mini-series. Created by Dan Fogelman, the series follows the lives and families of 2 parents and their 3 children in several different time frames. The show's ensemble cast features Milo Ventimiglia, Mandy Moore, Sterling K. Brown, Chrissy Metz, Justin Hartley, Susan Kelechi Watson, Chris Sullivan, Ron Cephas Jones, John Huertas, Alexandra Breckenridge, Eris Baker, and Faith Herman in Season 2. The series follows the lives of siblings Kevin, played by Hartley, Kate, played by Metz, and Randall, played by Brown, known as the Big Three, and their parents, Jack, played by Ventimiglia, and Rebecca Pearson, played by Moore. It takes place mainly in the present and uses flashbacks to show the family's past. Kevin and Kate are the two surviving members from a triplet pregnancy born 6 weeks premature on Jack's 36th birthday in 1980. Their brother, to be named Kyle, is stillborn. Believing that they were meant to have 3 children, Jack and Rebecca, who are white, decide to adopt Randall, a black child born the same day and brought to the same hospital after his biological father, William Hill, played by Jones, abandoned him at a fire station. Randall becomes a successful finance professional and marries college classmate Beth, played by Watson. Kevin becomes a successful actor while struggling to be taken seriously. After lacking direction much of her life, Kate meets Toby, played by Sullivan, in a weight loss support group. Most episodes feature a storyline taking place in the present, contemporaneous to the time of airing, and a storyline taking place at a set time in the past, but some episodes are set in one time period or use multiple flashback time periods. Flashbacks often focus on Jack and Rebecca about 1980, both before and after their baby's birth, or on the family when the big 3 are children or adolescents and played by 2 sets of younger actors. These scenes usually take place in Pittsburgh, where the big 3 and their parents are born and raised. As adults, Kate lives in Los Angeles, Randall and his family are in New Jersey, and Kevin relocates from Los Angeles to New York City and back again. Various other time periods and locations have also served as settings, and some episodes have focused on the earlier experiences of other characters, including Randall's family members. Beginning in the second season, the show also uses flash forwards to show a later time period, such as when Randall's daughter Tess is an adult. This Is Us was popularly requested for discussion and beloved by some of our resident couch potatoes, all of whom appear on this panel. In fact, panelists Kristen L., Spencer, Emily, Eddie, Kristen T., and Jared return to their respective seats around the water cooler today to resume talk of this intricate family drama with the kind of enthusiasm a cheer of Big 3 can only infuse into the proceedings. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of this series through season 2 at least, and may discuss sensitive plot points. So for those of you who have not watched This Is Us and plan to do so at some point, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Doing well.
Hello.
Are you ready to go forward in our catching up mini-series to talk the second season of this wonderful drama?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right. Well, of course, this is a catching up mini-series, and while I would normally call it taking your temperature, what I'm doing is moving you along through the seasons. So we're going to have to check in with the standard CPU character question, which changes with each show we do. I, of course, because it's a new season, have tweaked the character question. There's a few more characters on it, plus a few changes, not a lot of changes, because I feel like the Pearsons are pretty consistent, but I've tweaked some. So I'm going to read the character question. You're going to tell me how you feel after watching This Is Us Season 2. Sound like a plan?
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just remember, you do have to be vocal. This is a podcast. Okay, so how would you rate your interest in Season 2 of This Is Us along the following character scale? Do you love this show? It's got the big 3 things you love about your TV dramas: heart, soul, and a heaping dose of family dysfunction. Still, you wouldn't have it any other way. You love all of the characters very much and hope that whatever might have happened in the past, their presents and futures are happy, like Jack Pearson. Do you care about this show deeply? It's messy and complicated, but you're willing to navigate perceived pitfalls in the premise because it is one of the most well-intentioned television dramas that you've watched in recent years. Plus, it occasionally features the singing of Mandy Moore. Like Rebecca Pearson, what you enjoy most about the show is its ability to seamlessly weave through time periods, highlighting different eras of the Pearson family as seemingly disconnected moments, like young Kevin, Kate, and Randall Pearson, so specifically the kids. Do you enjoy this show? Well enough. You might even actually be addicted to it when all is said and done. You see it as both healthy and cathartic when it actually acknowledges that even the most seemingly perfect existence or sense of happiness can be be negatively influenced by unseen forces, such as genetic predispositions or strings of bad luck circumstances, like Kevin Pearson? Did you start watching in season 2, and even though you felt at a disadvantage, coming from behind and in the wake of what is considered to be a stellar first season, you've grown to love this family as much as anyone who's watched it from the beginning, like Miguel Rivas? Do you believe that this show is quite flawed in some aspects, but in others it excels? For example, you're surprised and gratified by the way it highlights race and privilege within the dynamic of one family, which is something new and fresh for the TV landscape, at least after some years. You're also particularly moved by Randall's quest to learn about his biological history, like Randall Pearson. There are parts of this series that you really love, such as the comic relief provided by the Toby character, and parts of this show that you really do not like, such as when the show is saddest, discussing Jack's death, for example. In fact, you wish the series would lose some of the dead weight, at least where it makes the most sense to do so, like Kate Pearson. You don't understand what's going on most of the time, but you still love the family at the show's heart, like Annie and Tess Pearson, because they're series regulars now. Do you think that the show is okay, though you wish it had more comedy and less drama? Still, there are parts that keep you coming back, like the sincere love between two people of a certain weight class, which often does not get depicted on television for anything other than laughs, like Toby Damon. Did you start watching in season 2 but became frustrated by the poor choices of some of its more misguided characters, no matter how much you might have been rooting for them, so you broke off your viewing quickly, preferring to keep it at a healthy distance, like Sophie, formerly Pearson? Are you wary of this show and some of its problematic characters? Oh sure, some of them have heart, but some of them can be almost dangerous, and while that is true to life of people or humanity, it's also not something you choose to watch over the other TV offerings available, like Beth Pearson. Or, this show has its bright spots, you really had to warm up to it, but you can't help feeling that watching the whole thing wasn't as worth it as you thought. Though you appreciated the smaller storylines that have now ended, you don't think you'll keep watching into season 3, as the memories of watching it early are best, like William, aka Shakespeare Hill. Who would like to start?
Hi, it's Eddie.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi, guys.
Eddie!
So, I actually happen to like, and this hasn't happened in a really long time, I actually happen to like season 2 better than season 1. And I only, and we'll discuss it, I'm sure, but I only think it's because we got to know the characters even more. And being a TV junkie, I think what most shows do, where you learn about the characters by like episode 7, I think that's what they're slowly doing over this series. But I haven't changed. I am still a Jack, and I love this show, and I'm happy to be back to talk about it.
All right, welcome back, Eddie.
I'm Emily.
Hi, Emily.
I want to echo what Eddie said. I think they're doing a really great job. I loved season 2. I think a lot of times the sophomore season of TV shows can be that sophomore slump where it's not so great. I think it was still going on that upward trajectory, so that's a good thing. I, too, am still Jack. I also want to throw in young Kevin, Kate, and Randall, because I think the thing that I like the most about this show is how effortlessly they weave through the time periods, particularly as it gets further in the series. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
All right, welcome back, Emily.
So this is Kristen L.
Hi, Kristen L.
The reason I wanted to go next is because I agree with everything that Eddie and Emily have both said. Like Emily, I'm still a Jack, and I'm also the young big 3. I love how they effortlessly jump through the timelines and how it just integrates into the story so well. So there we go. I'm in just like Eddie and Emily, Jack and young big 3.
Sounds good. Welcome back, Kristen L.
Alrighty. This is Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
And hey, I am also Jack and the young big 3, and for very much the same reasons. One of the things that could have been a major pitfall for this show is having different actors play the same characters, and they do it seamlessly. You believe that the young Kevin grows up to be the big Kevin. You can see the young Kevin in the big, all the way with all of the characters. It is so cleverly done. So the time skips, which can be a detraction, as we know from some of the other shows that we talk about, aren't a problem here. So that's why I have the big 3 kids in there with Jack, which I was after season 1.
All right, welcome back, Spencer.
Thanks.
Kristen T, you go ahead after your husband.
All right, hi.
Oh, yeah, we have a disclaimer.
You have a disclaimer.
Give the disclaimer. I don't know what it is.
Well, the lady about to speak is my wife, and she is marvelous.
Why, thank you. So we watch the show together, so I don't know if that influences our opinions, but we do have lots of discussions on This Is Us nights. When we finish watching, the discussion often continues later into the night than it probably should. But as a part of this very agreeable podcast panel, I have to absolutely say Jack and the Young Big Three is mine as well. The time period jump in season 1 surprised me in such a good way that I found myself looking forward to how they'd weave the time periods together in season 2, which was beautiful. I also really admire the flexibility of many of the adult actors to play their characters at so many ages and so believably, which I love. Like very few other shows, I find myself thinking about these characters when I'm not watching it. It's almost like, do they have a life outside the show? And that's really cool. So Jack of the Big Three, Young Big Three is also good for me.
All right, welcome back, Kristen T.
Kylie, would you like to go before me?
No, I go last. The moderator always goes last, but thanks for asking.
All right, not a problem at all. I can always talk. I am proud and happy to still be at the top of the temperature gauge with Jack
what's your
Pearson.
name?
Oh, sorry. It is I, Jared.
Hi, Jared.
Jared. So, yes, Jared, I am still at the top with Jack Pearson, but I also very much agree with everybody else. I noted in some of my notes that I really did love the way that everything just weaves so nicely in and out. I get a little impatient sometimes because I see that part and I have to wait till either the end or the next episode in order to be able to clear up exactly what that was or what it meant. But I absolutely loved it. One of those dedicated guys. I love every bit of it. Yeah, that's the dealio. I'm happy to be part of these peas in a pod.
Still a Jack then, huh?
That's a Jack.
All right.
What's up, Jack?
All right, welcome back, Jared. And of course, my name is Kylie. As I just alluded to, I moderate as well as participate on this panel, as is often the case. Last time, I was Jack. This time, I am Jack. I mean, I could add the small big three if you want. I don't know that it really matters so much because, Jack is at the top of the scale for a reason. He adores his family. He adores the story. He's the one that came up with that corny cheer in the show. Plus, he's Milo, and I don't think I appropriately praised Milo in the previous entry of our Catching Up miniseries, and if I did, too bad, I'm doing it again. I love Milo very much. I knew him first from Heroes, but I know he was on Gilmore Girls. I watched that later. I think he is dreamy. He's my age, and he is always been very cute and stuff and adorable, and I just feel that more as Jack Pearson. It's just a continuation. But the show, everything that everybody else has said, the show continues to amaze. Of course, I'm behind everybody else. I've not watched past this season. I'm getting the surprises as we go along with these Catching Up miniseries, and it hasn't disappointed. There is no sophomore slump. It continues its level of storytelling and its ability to really punch you emotionally in the gut, both high and low, in really riveting ways. And I think we're going to talk about just how riveting now. So let's discuss season 2. Last episode, we talked about season 1. We're doing this Catch-Up miniseries where we are covering each season per episode until we get all the way up to the current season, which is already underway by the time that we have recorded and published these. We will have the 5th season to talk about later on. But let's talk about season 2. What did you like? What didn't you like, if anything? If this is going to be a love fest, we could start with love, but it might be easier to start with what you don't like, if that even exists. But talk now.
I talked about Kevin in first season where I didn't like him. I don't know if it's that I don't like him. I think it's that his character's a little cliche. If I had to pick one thing to say about This Is Us that I don't like, it's Kevin's character in season 2. I mean, I thought it was a little cliche that he was going to rehab. His family all came and sat down, but that's also Kevin. That's why it's really hard. I mean, Kylie, you tried telling us to find something. I mean, other than that, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that Kevin going to rehab and everything is kind of cliche, but I think it's also, and you even alluded to this, I think it's so on par for his character, and I think it really actually fits in with the whole family dynamic so well, because he grows up idolizing his dad, and he's the classic, he's essentially the middle child. That's where he fits into the big three dynamic. And so I think it really works well. But yeah, I guess if I had to say one thing, it's that's a little cliche.
I do have to say, when they did all go and have that meeting, it was, and I took notes when I watched season 2, really in depth. I love how everybody started showing that they have their own mental health issues that they're dealing with. And I thought it was really well written how Rebecca's never really been able to deal with Jack dying on her own, because she went to being a single parent instantly after he died. It was really interesting to see her explode, and you can tell she's one of those mothers who doesn't like to do that.
I would agree with you in terms of the cliche thing, but I would definitely say that for me, the whole thing is just like a roller coaster anyway. So I just let myself go up and down the roller coaster, and I'd say for Randall, there's a lot of, it's very realistic in that not only do a lot of people deal with that kind of thing, but also, especially being a kind of an actor and what's happened to him in his life, all these kind of things lend themselves pretty easily to what Randall is going through. And that one of the notes that I took about Randall was
Kevin,
that...
you mean, right?
Oh, sorry, yes, Kevin. My bad, Kevin, yes. About Kevin was that it made me sad, because I know some people like that, and it just made me sad because I understood kind of a little bit of where he was at, and I empathized, and I wanted to see him get better, and so I just kind of went along on that roller coaster with him. But cliche, true, but sometimes cliche is the way that reality ends up being sometimes.
Yeah, well done cliche, I guess you would say. Sorry, Kristen.
No, you're good.
No, I agree as well. It's a well done cliche, I think, if it is a cliche at all. And I found myself getting so frustrated with Kevin at times. I just wanted him to choose something else or see the other person that was there. But at the same time, as Jared said, going on that roller coaster with him was pretty powerful. And the moment when he is not able to get back the pendant from his dad was absolutely crushing to me.
Yes. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like with all of this, they're just really taking Kevin to the lowest point that he can get to, so we can watch him be built back up. Which I don't know. Yes, it's a cliche. Yes, it could have maybe been done a little bit better if they would have thought about it maybe a little bit more. But I can see where they're going, and I'm okay with it.
And that scene where he melted down, I felt like I said, I think he deserves an Oscar for that scene, in my opinion. But
or at least an Emmy. That's what you get for TV.
Oh,
TV.
I guess I'm just old. It's just me.
No, it was that good that they should give the Oscar even though it isn't eligible. The thing about Kevin that I really appreciate is that he is so many echoes of Jack. There are so many elements of his father within him. It shows time and time and time again. And I really appreciate that, because it is a very genuine human thing for essentially the first male son to emulate their father. So not only in the good things, in the bad things. So you see all of that with Kevin, and I really appreciate that storytelling.
And I don't think Kevin realizes that about himself. I don't think he realizes how much of Jack is in him.
I want to piggyback on that point, because I think that's my favorite aspect of this show, because of the fact that they're able to spend such a quality, in-depth time with these characters by virtue of how they've set it up. You really get to explore those aspects. And I think season 2, again, I haven't watched past it, so I don't know what might come next. But season 2 does a really good job of landing on those moments when the kids, both the biological kids and Randall, really end up emulating the people that took care of them and loved them, their parents. Both of those notes. I felt Kevin's journey, I actually really appreciated Kevin's journey, and yes, the rehab group session was a little bit, it was a little bit cliche, but I think they knew it was cliche and they played it as tongue-in-cheek in some aspects, while still carrying through the drama, because they had Kate Burton in as the therapist, Ellis Gray, for those who watch the Grey's Anatomy, and she has the ability to really kind of play that drama with that tongue-in-cheek sardonic bend where there's something a little bit of a smile behind it, and while still being very, very serious and grumpy looking when she needs to be. So I really appreciated Kevin's journey this season. I think I would agree that Kevin was my least favorite in season 1. I don't think he was my least favorite in season 2. I think he comes a long way because he does come to this realization that there's more of his father in him than he anticipated, and he had been trying to push down that grief for such a long time or quell it with addiction, and I think that's a really valuable journey. But I also think another valuable journey is Kate's journey, realizing how much she wants to be like her mom, and that the seed of that resentment is she feels like she can't be enough like her mom. And yet she's convinced Rebecca that she just keeps running afoul. She can't do anything right in her daughter's eyes.
And they do very well with that being generational as well, because you see some of Jack's father coming all the way through to Kevin, and the Kate comes from Rebecca's relationship with her mother. There's always shades of it, and they seem to improve it with each generation. You know, they get rid of some of the negativity and build as characters. But it's very real. It feels real to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying when I think about these characters having lives beyond what we see in the episodes. It's very believable to me that, obviously I know that they don't, but the generations and the depth really make it seem like they are people that we know.
I think a big part of that, and I think it was Eddie that maybe touched on it, was mental health and how it's represented in this show. I think a big part of why those characters do feel so real is because they do talk about those issues. There's so many shows that try to touch on it and kind of turn it into like a caricature of those real emotions. And you look at people like Randall, who suffer with anxiety, and you look at Kevin, who's got addiction, and you look at Kate, who's got all sorts of, like, she's got her body image issues and that sort of thing too. And so I think that's what really grounds them as characters, is having these really real aspects of the real world so well ingrained and so realistic in those characters.
And so beautifully acted without becoming a caricature, I believe, at any time.
Yeah, we talked about it in the last episode, Randall and his struggle with anxiety. Watching him deal with that throughout the seasons is also just really beautiful.
I still think Randall's my favorite just because Sterling Brown is so good in this role.
I love him.
This season, of course, is much more focused on the decision by Randall and Beth to foster, and they get Deja in this season. And I think that this mental health journey for Randall, he really can explore that. He can kind of feed the energy from that into trying to care for Deja, while at the same time learns about himself through that relationship as well. And I think that's really cool.
I loved that they brought that they kind of had that second generational adoption going on. I thought that the kind of, when you first find out that Randall's adopted into the family, it seems a little, the whole situation around it's a little like, okay, that's like kind of a fantastical situation. Like, this baby gets dropped off and you just take him home with you from the hospital. Like, that's not how it all really works.
They showed the court date. And the
yeah, that's right. They did. But I think going through that process again in current times I think it's just really cool to show that still happening. And because I think, I don't know, I really liked that they showed it, and that they showed it again the way that they did.
And while there's a lot of things about me that I tend to live on the dramatic side sometimes, I love those many moments throughout the show where I just kind of sit there and I listen and I soak it in, and I'm like, that was amazing, or that was great. Like I from time to time, I took down some quotes, and I remember from the first time I watched it, one of my favorite quotes at the beginning of the season 2 was when Rebecca said to Randall, when she was talking to him towards the end, he said, referring to Jack, the father, he pushed a stranger on me, to Randall, he pushed a stranger on me, and that stranger became my child, and that child became my life. He became you. And that was just one of those moments where it's very emotional, but so true and so powerful for the love that she shows to him and the love that he needed to hear. And it was great.
I also want to highlight, we have some pretty heavy guest stars, which I understand increase in frequency as the seasons progress, because it's a hit show and it's NBC, and that's how TV works. But in this particular season, so starting with the foster situation, the foster care worker is Deborah Jo Rupp, who most of us would know as Kitty Foreman from That 70s Show. She's had other roles, but that's like her big one. She was also, what's her name on Friends?
Oh, wasn't she the wife of Phoebe's brother?
Yes. His formerly home ec teacher turned wife, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. Good talk.
So you're talking about big stars.
Big stars. Deborah Jo Rupp. We had Sylvester Stallone, because he was acting in a movie that was directed by Ron Howard, who also appeared, not in narrating like on Arrested Development, unfortunately, though I kept wanting him to. And then, of course, Gerald McRaney comes back as well. So he is, of course, the doctor that delivered Rebecca's babies and has had a recurring role.
Dr. K.
Yeah.
Love Dr. K.
Dr. K. Formerly Major.
I will say that's one of the testaments to how good this show is, that you are getting in just season 2, Ron Howard, Sylvester Stallone appearing in a TV show that's only, they come fairly early on in season 2 as well. It says a lot about the popularity of and quality of the show.
What I loved about it, though, is that their star status didn't take away from the show at all. Like, I was not at all distracted by having these big stars in the show. I thought they just fit so beautifully into the way everything was written.
I think Linda was one of my favorite, guest star characters. Like, how she was as a social worker. Like, her attitude and... pretty much she told Randall, you need to suck it up. This is going to be rough. I just love how strong her character was. And introducing, guest star characters, sometimes they don't always go very well. And I feel like they did how every single guest character was, super well. It just felt like they were supposed to be there.
They felt organic.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Good word.
I thought the conversation between Kevin and Sylvester Stallone was very poignant.
It was very good. Having a father passed away at a young age myself, I always listen to these things as if it's almost like it's with me, and just how Sylvester reminded Kevin to cherish the memories of his father and his childhood rather than suppressing them. It was just really, really good.
I like Kate and Sylvester Stallone's conversation because I feel like I like how she acted, and we said this multiple times. She acted just like she was young Kate when you see young Kate. And when they first got introduced to the Rocky movie, it was very well done how she did that. And she actually looked really starstruck herself. Her as an actress, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now. Again, like we said, very well done.
It's hard when you love a TV show and everybody agrees, because it's what can we say? We just love the whole thing.
Watch it. It's wonderful.
It's so good. Well, we can talk about Deja a little bit more, because we kind of touched on how they adopted her.
She's
love
not
her.
actually adopted. She's not a... So yeah, she just came back for the second time. Yeah, because
she's fostered.
Yeah, she's fostered because mom is releasing her parental rights as of the end of this season.
That's right.
Sean,
I love her. I love her. I think she's a fantastic actress. I think her character is such a good foil to Kevin. Randall, who's always so, we keep doing that, Jared did that earlier. I think she's such a good foil to Randall, who's always kind of Mr. Prim and Proper, and everything has a way to do it, and you have to be on task, and she's so she's just so kind of rough around the edges, and I think she just does such a fantastic job with it. I love her.
I would go on to say that the scene where Deja first came on the scene when she walked through the front door, I love great visualizations, and just the visualizations and the sounds, just how everything went quiet. She was walking through the door of this brand new place. She didn't know anybody. All the things that must be going through her mind because she was taken away from her mother. I think it's really great for people to see things like that because people need to understand how real, how raw, how complicated and difficult and hard that is for a kid, especially coming from a rough situation. But yeah, that was really well done when she first came on the scene.
I remember when we watched the episode at the time, I had a student who had recently been put in foster care, and watching that episode really kind of helped me understand a lot of what she was going through, just because it was the same look, the same expressions, the same kind of outburst behavior that almost seemed erratic, and it was very, very grounded in realism and well portrayed.
I actually like Deja. Oh, I'm sorry, Kylie.
All I was going to say was piggybacking on Emily's point with Randall and Deja being good foils to each other. It's funny because he really steps up his dad jokes around her, and I love the fact that she keeps calling him corny. You're so corny. But there's in much the contrast to how she comes on the scene, I love that there's a genuine, they take such care with showing a genuine growth of a bond between them and between Deja and Beth and Deja and the other girls. I think it's actually very interesting. It's something that isn't played to a lot of excessive drama or exaggeration as a foster kid story might otherwise.
I was just going to say, I love how I feel like when they introduced Deja is when we started seeing that Tess and Annie were like their father or like their mother. I think Annie is definitely going to be more like her mother, and Tess is definitely like Randall. And I just love how that they were like so accepting on bringing her into their house.
And how they missed her when she was
all
gone.
Of those girls. Tess and Annie are so cute, and they're such good actresses too at such a young age. It's really incredible to see. Sometimes in those situations where you've got these bigger names and these bigger stars, you can kind of pick out some of the weaker links in there, and you would almost imagine the kids to be some of the weaker links, but they all hold their own. They're all like right up there with everybody else. I'm just so impressed.
I was just thinking about Shauna, Deja's mother, birth mom, and I was thinking about how I actually really appreciated that they didn't portray her as a terrible human being, that they showed heart, they showed emotion. You got to see why Deja loved her mom and how much she cared about Deja. And it made it all the more poignant when Shauna agreed to relinquish her parental rights at the end of the season, because you knew how much she absolutely loved her daughter and that it really was a decision in her daughter's best interest.
Yeah, Deja's coming from a rough situation, but not the stereotypical rough situation that most shows or movies tend to portray, like the horrible abuse and all of that sort of thing. She's coming from a very real situation that a lot of people experience that isn't shown in media.
I also like how, to piggyback on you saying that, how Shauna was like showed emotion. I like how they showed how when her mother died, how life got real for her.
Yeah, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Jack's backstory as well.
Correct. Yeah. Like, she didn't know what to do, but she knew she had to be a mother, but she didn't know how. And I think she was afraid of failing. That's why at the end of the season, she realized that she shouldn't have Deja.
I think that's, again, the testament to the writing, that they shadow those emotions through so many characters and show so many similar things while having them be from different circumstances. Everything's just so relatable.
Well, and I think they also do a really good job of showing, now to get sort of corny myself, but since we're talking about a multiracial, multi-ethnic set of characters as well, that no matter how different we are, there's still a lot of similarities between us too. There are unseen things that, you may not know about just because you haven't, sat down with somebody's life for more than a few minutes. And I think This Is Us talks through that and portrays these characters in a really poetic way to remind us all that this is the case.
Yeah, it allows you to see absolutely everybody as human, not as a race, not as a sexuality, but pure humans, and how they include everyone and show everyone with such love and dignity. And I don't think I've seen a TV show do that before.
No, and it also going back to the writing and everything and just them being human, I think a huge part of that is them just actually writing these really real situations and these really real moments. So many shows tend to go to the extreme and do the big caricature and just kind of be over the top about these sort of topics and these moments that are so beautiful, and that's where I get lost. I'm like, I don't like those really cheesy moments, but these moments that could be like that are so real and so grounded and just so beautiful.
Yeah, they don't try to over-dramatize any of it.
Exactly.
So about those... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, even though they can get, deep and dramatic like that, I really love how they can make things just so real. Like, I really appreciate a lot of the flashbacks, and that I like to remember the way things were very similar for me, or the way that I remember things looking and feeling back in the different time periods. Like, I loved the scene where in episode 4, where they were in the video rental store, like renting movies, and that's kind of the things we used to do when I was younger. So I love that kind of a flashback for us at home too.
Actually, that's a really good point. It's fun when I figure that these people are just, and by these people I mean the kids, the big 3, are maybe just a few years younger than I would be in real life, based on my math of the situation.
Yeah,
so when they're kids in the 80s and teenagers in the 90s, that feels very visceral. And I think that the show does a fairly good job. Maybe not as good as Stranger Things, because Stranger Things is the bar by which if you want immersive nostalgia and having flashbacks to when you were in elementary school in the 80s, watch Stranger Things. This Is Us, though, does a pretty good job of it, especially the 90s, probably, because I have a feeling that a lot of the people that make this show are around my age, too. So the 90s feels particularly visceral whenever they start talking about things. And the scene where, in this season, when Kate skips school, teenage Kate skips school to go see Alanis Morissette at a record store, and then she plays the opening song of Jagged Little Pill, All I Really Want. Highly recommend the album, highly recommend the song, enjoy both. And then
And the musical.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay, but Emily, you know how I feel about things. Anyway.
The musical is amazing, but go ahead.
Okay.
Go back.
Well, the album started as the amazing thing, and so Kate was having a whole back and forth with her dad, who caught her skipping school, and he's like, this isn't real music, what is this music? And then he ends up turning on what, Jim Croce? What did he play? I don't even remember. So, which I want to mention the music, which I didn't put it in the talking points, but I did chat with the group over Messenger as I was watching the season. I love the music on this show. Not only the original music that they play for the scoring of it and for anything that Mandy Moore might sing from time to time, but also just the soundtrack selection. Like, the whole scene when Jack is driving teenage Randall back from Howard University after touring the campus of one of the oldest HBCUs in the country. And Randall is so... They're just kind of talking through the tension of Jack feeling isolated because, well, he was, kind of like the white guy there. And Randall having such a great time finding other black students and meeting other black people. And then they have this really good heart-to-heart talk about how none of that really matters with their relationship, Under Which All Things Must Pass by George Harrison is playing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a really great song to pick for that moment. And I feel that every time they pick a song, including All I Really Want by Alanis Morissette.
It goes to show how important music is to giving you a certain feeling. And a lot of TV shows and even films, music just seems like a little throwaway. You know, they give you something just so there's the noise in the background. This does such a good job of making it fit and, again, feel organic. This show just feels so real to me. I think I said this when we did season 1. I've not seen a show with writing and care to the topics as much as this ever, I believe.
The music is very intentional. One of the moments that still sticks out to me, and I don't remember what season it was from, but Kate is jamming to Come As You Are, Nirvana. It just, like, it's stuck in my head, and it's just picking the little bits and pieces like that, and when something like that just kind of sticks in your head, you know that it's a good choice. Yeah, there are few TV shows. I think the only TV show that actually pops up that comes to mind where music has been really influential is actually Grey's Anatomy. There's that one song that plays in every episode that something bad's gonna happen. So it's like some of those moments, they stick in your head, but I can't think of any other TV show really. I mean, Glee, but that's like an easy one. That's an easy one. So to have a show like This Is Us, a drama that really isn't centered around music at all, have such an impact musically, I think it's just really incredible.
Jared, I agree with your Wonder Years thing.
I don't know if she heard me. I said
Wonder Years is a good one.
Wonder Years did do a good job of that.
That was a fantastic era for music, though, the Wonder Years.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So Emily mentioned moments earlier, the moments that really kind of stick out. Now I'm going to have to start, we got to get to an hour, so I want to talk about what moments in season 2 stood out for you. Good or bad?
I like that Randall delivers his own first daughter. I really think that's where, first of all, I think that's where you see Randall, like, starting to have, like, his anxiety, and you're like, are they really going to make this man a father? But I think him delivering his daughter makes him, like, enjoy life even more. And I think he's also, like, we start realizing that he's afraid that he's going to possibly screw up as being a father. But I thought it was interesting that they wrote that Rebecca was there while all of this was happening.
I think Rebecca, with Jack's personal belongings in the car, was one of the most powerful moments of this season.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to prompt it, and I'm going to let you all talk about it.
Yeah, it's just that she holds it together around the kids and everything, and then you get that realization, that rush of sorrow, and you feel it with her. It's so raw. Her emotion, the acting in that scene is just, she is absolutely incredible. Mandy Moore throughout this show, up to, you know, we're talking about the first 2 seasons here, but all the way through, she is just astoundingly good.
So what Spencer is alluding to, the big reveal in this season, because of course the initial twist of the first season, other than the 2 time periods, or the several time periods, was we found out that Jack had passed away. In season 2, we find out how. So what?
And they did a really good job of tricking us. They made us believe that he died in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at first they kind of.
The fact that he did.
I was going to say, at first they kind of seeded the idea that maybe alcoholism had gotten hold of him, and he had either succumbed to that somehow, or had gotten into like a car accident, because they kept showing him drunk driving.
That was our initial thought.
Yeah, I think the first time he drove home from the bar drunk was a really big moment for me. I still can picture it. I think that was one that I have people in my life that I've known that have had alcohol problems, so that whole topic was something that really hit home for me. And seeing that moment where he made that choice, I was like, that's how he's gonna go. That's totally it. And then for them to throw that twist in there, incredible.
Yeah, made it
heartbreaking, but incredible.
I'm with you on that, Emily, too. My dad was actually an alcoholic, so I actually connected a lot with some of the things that were happening in that season, in that series, and I was so terrified every time he got into the car. It just kind of would seize me, and I fully believed that was what was going to happen multiple times. It was gripping.
Yeah.
How they killed Jack, I mean, it was amazing how they wrote it. I was almost mad because I think I was expecting, like how we've been saying, that he was going to die because he was an alcoholic, or he was going to get in a car crash, or like even have a work accident or something. But him dying of, well, ultimately a heart attack, it just, I think I remember watching it and it blindsiding me and me getting done going, what? Like, really? That's
especially
how it's
when
happen?
they kind of fed you the whole, he's going to get this heroic death going back in for the dog kind of a deal, and then they pulled that away and you're like, how does he die?
Yeah.
And then it's something seemingly innocuous in comparison.
Yeah, I remember watching this episode very vividly because it was after the Super Bowl, so it was already super late at night, and like I was exhausted, but I'm like, I have to watch this. This is, I can't miss it. And I was wrecked. I mean, I started crying when the house caught on fire with the stupid crock pot, which now I'm always nervous when I put my crock pot on, but it's never overnight. But I'm very fearful of crock pots.
Just don't get one from your neighbors and you'll be all fine.
I wonder if Crockpot's business tanked at all after that.
That's funny.
Hopefully not.
But yeah, when as soon as the house caught on fire, I started bawling like this is what's happening. Then we get to the hospital and he's okay. He's talking with Rebecca, and then all of a sudden she goes to the vending machine or something to get
Yeah.
a snack, and she comes back and he's gone. I can't even imagine what that would have been. And her reaction, Emmy worthy. Oh my gosh. I'm so constantly surprised by Mandy Moore in this series, and that episode in particular.
She's incredible. Just incredible.
The way it happened like that, though, it felt a little bit, I mean, that somebody could die that way technically, but just the way it kind of rolled out, it seemed a little bit unbelievable. Just it happened so fast, like there was no indication beforehand that he was in that kind of distress. It just happened so quickly, and I don't know. In a way, I'm like, that doesn't. It is powerful the way that they did that, and I'm glad that they did. But I still think that it felt a little bit fake.
I think the way they explained it was that by the time the adrenaline wore off and he kind of settled down a little bit, that's when things like his body hadn't quite caught up to all of that yet. And so I think it didn't feel totally unrealistic to me.
They very specifically labeled the type of event as a widowmaker.
Yeah.
And
okay, that's right.
So to me,
with as heavily as they research things and seem to put it all together, I feel like they wouldn't have just kind of made that death up without making sure it's something that can and would happen from somebody that suffered from smoke inhalation, etc.
And it feels sudden to us, but the very nature of a widowmaker is that his heart gave out because of all the stress on it, which we now know was the smoke inhalation coupled with the fact that he had been drinking a lot up until the point. So he already had a weakened system that was influenced by that intake. And so when the doctor, and it's so in passing, and you may not have even registered it right away because Mandy Moore at that time, she's playing Rebecca as in she's not hearing it. Like, you're wrong. She's eating the candy bar. She can't understand what she's being told in the moment. So I registered it because my dad died of a similar type of a heart attack. And so that's when I started crying for hours after. But the particular scene is so powerful that when they explained it that way, it's like, oh, this is the culmination of all of it. And yeah, it did feel sudden because it was sudden, but they had they earned that suddenness all the way up until the point.
I mean, to their defense, they literally were handing it to us. Like, they were showing us, here's all the alcohol that he's been intaking. Here's all of this other stress he's got going on in his life. Here's him going back in and running in there to save the dog, and that's adding to the adrenaline. And so they were like handing it to us on a silver platter in a lot of ways.
Sometimes I'm a little naive, I guess.
Too.
That's okay.
Jack's a really strong character too, so if he was experiencing symptoms, he may not have outwardly expressed it either.
That's true.
So that's another thing that I can totally believe, where it may have seemed sudden, but if he was trying to remain calm for Rebecca and like, I'm fine, everything's okay, Yeah, you never know.
And actually, I would say that he didn't seem fine in the scene immediately preceding her departure to the vending machine. It's clear that he is coming down from that adrenaline high. There's something not altogether right, and that there's something, I'm going to say, fading a little bit with him, because probably at that point is when we're supposed to register that it has started.
Yeah, you kind of see his light dim a little bit.
Again, you kind of have to hand it to the writers, because although it wasn't a big, flashy, heroic death, Jack is the heart of the show, and in so many ways. And the fact that he carried so much of everything for all of the other members of the family. He was a confidant for Kate. He was there for Randall in his anxiety. He was there for Kevin to help him find himself. He carried Rebecca's difficulties with her mother. Like, all of those things metaphorically he carried as well as strains. And he was the heart. And ultimately his heart failing is what ended up killing him, which is fitting.
And I would say I'm so happy and so impressed by the way that they have been able to continue to use him, the way that they used him so far even. But I shouldn't stop there because I'm afraid I'll go too far. But basically,
No spoilers.
I'm liking the way that they're using him.
Yeah, I know. One of the strongest moments after he passed for me was the episode where Kate and Toby get married, and she has this whole other alternate reality in her head where her dad died and he was there and experiencing everything. And that, again, a genius way to continue to incorporate Jack throughout those kinds of big family moments in a way.
There's a real sense of, even when characters pass away on this show, they never really pass away, because William was interspersed throughout the season as well, but as memories for Randall and as flashbacks. And I was like, well, for sure they're not going to bring back Mr. Jones because he passed away and he had such a powerful dying scene with Randall and it was so moving, but then they found a way to incorporate him as well. And I just think we're going to continue to see that. You don't have to confirm or deny.
Can trust these writers.
The only thing I will say is that the show has not lost any of its beats.
Not at all.
It's still very strong.
I was crying the other night watching the current season.
Yeah, a couple of times people have mentioned tears. It is very, very rare for television to elicit any sort of strong emotion from me of that sort. And this show has actually brought, that welling up of tears in the eyes for me, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, you're so grumpy.
Hashtag true confessions.
That's an affection of many panels together.
Has the writing team of This Is Us written any previous shows together?
I don't know about specific writers other than Dan Fogelman. Dan Fogelman, of course, wrote Crazy Stupid Love. That's his biggest credit. And I've actually, as a testament to how my obsession with this show is starting to grow, I went down a very deep, dark YouTube tunnel watching old interviews with this cast, because now I'm obsessed with the cast. And, I already knew some of them. I already mentioned Milo. I should also re-mention Justin Hartley, who is also attractive and was the Green Arrow on Smallville. And he was Victoria Grayson's gay long-lost son on Revenge, too, by the way. So for those of you, if you're keeping track. But he's super hot. Anyway, I was watching old Jimmy Fallon's and Stephen Colbert's and Wired autocomplete interviews and stuff on YouTube just to learn more about this cast and how they work together. And they just fit together as such an amazing ensemble, and you can really tell that they have a huge affection for one another. But they all talk about the writers themselves, that we're here and we're doing our jobs, but we wouldn't be doing such a magical job if it wasn't for the magical stuff that these writers have been creating for us to play with. And I think it's a perfect symbiosis of writing and acting, being able to lift those words off the page, and directing, because this show is remarkably paced. There is never a time when I'm watching it, and if I find myself wandering, like with the phone, I immediately put the phone back down again, and I'm like, no, I gotta pay attention. And it doesn't happen often because it moves along at such a nice, consistent, organic clip that you never get lost in the action or get bored.
I agree.
We watch this show live every week, so usually with me, if I get a text or something, I read it right away. With this show, I wait for the commercials.
I would be interested in knowing, like, when something is this brilliant. I mean, it probably could be done either way, but I'm curious, like, how far ahead they actually have already written. If they've written through all the seasons, if they've written through 2 seasons, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, but it almost feels like it's so good that it was something that they just wrote season by season. I don't know. Maybe somebody else does.
I just read an article because Mandy Moore in real life is pregnant. And correct. I think the headline was something about, like, I don't remember who it was, like, talking about her pregnancy. But in reading the article, they talked about how she went to the writers first. Like, as soon as she found out, she went to the writers, and they were like, nope, it's okay, we don't have to rewrite anything. We might tweak a few things here and there, but for the most part, this pregnancy isn't going to interfere with how we've already written the whole season. So I do know at least that much.
They storyboarded through till their termination. They have, like, the main course of it was originally supposed to be done at 5 seasons, but it has been renewed for 5 and 6 now, so I'm wondering what that will do to the overarching storyline. But they had the termination point already planned, and that's why you get some of those really good scenes. There's a lot of stuff they filmed with the kids already that we won't see for quite a while, because obviously when you're working with kids, you don't want them to suddenly have, a massive growth spurt, or how voices change, all that kind of stuff. They planned out a lot of this out in advance.
And NBC has given them group renewals of seasons with this in mind, which this never happens on network. It's always season by season. But with This Is Us, they've gone in pairs or even 3s, basically saying you have this much time, go ahead and plan it out, because they know that so much planning is involved in creating the story.
And it's a story like no other, really. There's not a show like this. I feel like it is in its own genre, but it almost kind of is, with the way it tells the story through the different time periods, and you need to be able to film those actors in scenes that we're not going to see till later series, but at their current ages.
Yeah, I definitely...
It's crazy how... Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
This is definitely going to be a show that's going to go out on its own terms and not due to a cancellation order.
Yeah.
It's interesting how many... I always forget when I'm watching that there's, 6 ages for Kevin. There's 6 different ages that we see, and you can sometimes in an episode see, 4 different ages of all 3 of the main characters, but they just flow together so well that I forget that he's only 6 there, or he's 14 there, and this is the current time. And this is the first show that I've watched that I haven't gotten confused bouncing back and forth from the current time to the past, and then bouncing back to the current. It just all flows so well.
Yeah, that was one thing we talked about on the Once Upon a Time panel, was bouncing forth between the different times. And one of the things that we had said was how interesting it would be to watch the show recut in order of, the beginning through the end, past to present. And that'd be something that could be really interesting with this show as well, if we were to watch it in timeline order and not back.
There's an article that they put out. I don't know if it was NBC or who they were interviewing, but they literally did everything up to season 5 in chronological order. And it's crazy that just reading all of it in chronological order.
It's really interesting because later on, too, in some of these, in season 4 and the beginning of season 5, they do some really beautiful moments with the kind of weaving in and out of the different time periods. And there's one of them that just sticks out in my mind that I won't go into detail about, but it almost seems like it's going to be really confusing. And then they do this switch and you find out where those timelines actually are and where we are in the time periods. And it just takes your breath away. It just absolutely is so beautiful. And I think that's one of the things that they do the absolute best, is just weaving in and out of those time periods, making it so seamless, making you think that you're in one time period and then finding out you're in another one. It's incredible.
Emily, I would say the same thing. And without giving anything away, it continues in later seasons to do the same thing, even sometimes within scenes. Within dialogue, the mirroring is just beautifully delightful. And then kind of back to what Eddie was saying too about in sequence, there was a bunch of stuff that came out last spring and last summer on social media about watching certain through lines. So maybe like one of them would be Beth Pearson's story, and it would be like a list of all the episodes that tell bits of Beth's story in chronological order, or Kevin or whoever. So I think that might have been on This Is Us's Instagram page. That could be something if people are interested in seeing any of the stories. I didn't try it, but could be fun.
That would be interesting.
I'll research and link if it's there.
Yes.
That's something that this show has continued to do and surprised me by doing. Generally with TV, there's a formula. You can kind of predict what's coming. You get a very good idea of what you're about to see. 4 seasons in, without spoiling anything, this show still shocks me time and time again. And I love that because I'm so used to being able to work it out, and to have a show that actually gives me surprises in a way that blow your mind from a storytelling perspective. The oh my God moments are just beautiful.
Incredible.
And and I mean, I know we're talking about season 2, but like just to say how this continues, I mean, we're starting, because of the pandemic that we're in, a lot of shows have premiered later, and a lot of shows have used the pandemic, and a lot of the shows that I love to watch have used the pandemic in their first episode or second episode, and this is the only show that has made it organic, and that's all I'm going to say.
There. Some people aren't caught up.
Might have to edit that out, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can't jump ahead.
Kylie, watch faster.
Yeah.
Right. Watch faster.
Yeah, because I think the rest of us are all current, aren't we?
Okay.
Is Kylie the only one that's behind?
Some people produce a TV podcast and have to watch a lot of TV. Okay? I have to plan my life so that I can actually clean my house.
Who needs a clean house?
Can't have people over anyway.
Okay, so this is an appeal. If there are any listeners out there that have a house cleaning service that could aid Kylie so that she can catch up on This Is Us and we can have these conversations, we'd all really appreciate it.
I am always watched by the time we're scheduled. Okay.
That's fine, but we're probably not going to be scheduled for at least a month. So now we have to wait another month to just talk about season 3.
I can jump out of the chat for a while.
No.
The Outlander
Well,
ladies
part
have had to
of
deal
the
with it.
joy is actually hearing you talk about something for the first time as you're catching up behind us. So please keep doing it.
Okay then.
I agree.
See, it's charming sometimes.
I think it's just because we keep talking about further on. I think it's a testament to how good the show is, though, is that a lot of times as the show goes on, I tend to lose interest sometimes, and it's totally kept me there 100%. I'm sure that I will continue to be Jack until the very end.
I mean, I can't imagine it would go down at all.
Yeah, me
Nope.
too.
We get disappointed when we find out we have something scheduled on a Tuesday night. Like right now, Kristen and I are both in rehearsals, and when the calendar comes out for the next week, if we're in rehearsal on a Tuesday, it's like, oh man, how are we got to find a way to catch This Is Us as soon as possible.
Right. And then
I think
just say in real life before the pandemic, I had to then avoid my colleagues at lunch the next day if we had rehearsal because they couldn't help talking about it and something would always slip. So it's very much a part of our schedule, and TV doesn't usually end up being that.
It's gonna be interesting.
I think I told Spencer, all I was going to say was, I think I might have told Spencer this. I was actually mad that the election was on a Tuesday and This Is Us wasn't showing.
Yeah, especially as they brought it out, they moved it 2 weeks sooner, and then it was interrupted by the election. So we got a 2-hour season starter, then we had to wait through that crap, and then we got it back again. It's like, It was very frustrating.
Tuesday night, I was just sitting on my couch. This Tuesday night, every time there was a commercial, I'm like, This Is Us is on tonight. I'm so excited.
Well, it would be interesting how many years it goes, because I mean, like Grey's Anatomy, I still love Grey's Anatomy every episode, but I think most shows go through a lull. Maybe this wouldn't, but could you imagine it going like 15, 16, 17 years?
No.
I don't see how they can stretch it that much.
It was supposed to be 5. They've convinced them to do 6. I don't believe it's going past 6.
Okay.
Unless the money is out of their minds. Look, we're going to throw you so much money, you have to do a season 7. I don't believe that Fogelman wants to go past that.
But I think it's also part of the beauty of the show is that they do have a complete story to tell. There is an end game. They're starting to work towards that. I think it would lose its appeal if it just kept going like Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy can refresh their cast. They can do a lot of things to keep it fresh and exciting for people, whether they're longtime viewers or new viewers. But This Is Us, you have to watch it from start to finish. And you want to tell a quality story, and I think that's their goal. It's quality over quantity.
And you cannot lose any of those core cast members. You just
okay. I was going to say, couldn't you carry it on with their children and their children's children, and then just keep linking it back to their ancestors? I don't know.
I wouldn't be as interested. You know, yeah. I think Kristen T said it earlier. Jack is the heart of the show, and I love Milo so much. I can't underscore just how much I love Milo. Even in Gilmore Girls, I was that boyfriend, him. I didn't. Jess, yeah, I didn't care about Logan, and I didn't like Sam playing Dean. It's fine. That's a Supernatural reference. Thank you for playing. But I love Milo so much. He's so good in this role, and Mandy Moore is so good. I mean, I was very skeptical about Mandy Moore walking into this show, and she has done nothing but knock me off my socks multiple times as I've watched so far. And I feel like writing any one of these characters out of the story would defeat the magic and the lightning in the bottle that This Is Us kind of really is. In fact, I'm wondering what's going to happen when I get caught up, because I will say that when I sit down to watch a season, unless I'm being very regimented, which I was a little with season 2, because we ended up rescheduling this recording session, so I had to force myself to stop watching for a minute just so I wouldn't get so far ahead of myself that I'd forget. But when I sit down to watch This Is Us, I blow right through it in ways that other TV shows don't quite blow for me, because I do try to keep to a schedule, believe it or not. And I'm very selective about TV shows that I'm current with. It's maybe 1 or 2, and I can see myself wanting to stay current on This Is Us and wanting to find out what happens next, because that's how I am when I'm watching it. Like, oh, I can't leave it there. I got to find out what's happening in the next episode.
Yeah, you get to the end of an episode and your appetite is already whetted for the next.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes we get to the end of I cannot. How can they make us wait a week? I cannot possibly wait a week. I cannot.
It's the worst. After I watched this week's episode, I'm like, dang it.
You guys sound like a bunch of tweets. Like I read tweets and they're all like that. I'm gonna die. I can't believe it. Oh my goodness. How can you do that to us? Oh!
You only have so many characters, so you have to be extra dramatic at Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, let's ask a couple of questions. So we've mentioned Jack, and we've mentioned a couple of other things, Deja and Kevin's stint in rehab. We didn't really mention the fact that Kate and Toby get married finally in this season. In fact, we've hardly
I love Toby.
Me too. We've hardly focused on Kate
sense of humor Toby's sense of humor through the first 2 seasons is one of my favorite things in the show. There's just that jovialness that he has that develops out more even so. But his jokes, his attitude, everything about him is so endearing.
I love his jokes, but I was watching earlier today. I think it was, I don't know if it was episode 10, just after the miscarriage, and that's another thing, along with race and all kinds of stuff that we could continue to talk about on the more deeper side. But in terms of Toby, there was this moment where he went out trying to find that package to stop it from getting back to the house so that Kate wouldn't open it, where he stood talking to that guy and he said, this mean guy is about to come out. And I at that moment, I didn't know if he was joking or, I mean, he knew he was serious, but just the way he spoke, I couldn't tell if he was trying to be lighthearted, but he was being totally serious. He was gonna get upset if this guy didn't tell him where he could find the box.
He's incredible, and I love his relationship with Kate because she really needs him. He is her rock, but he can still be very independent and still contribute to the relationship in a really great way. I love them. I think they're awesome together. The whole miscarriage thing was really beautifully done. A lot of times in shows, a miscarriage will happen and then it's done and over with an episode later. Several have happened in Grey's Anatomy, and it's they talk about it for that episode and then it's done. I loved the way they handled it on This Is Us. I thought that whole situation was very realistic. Yeah.
I also love
I love how Toby asked her dad if he can marry her, and he tells Kate that he asked the big man if he could marry her. I like Toby because when I first started watching this show, I thought Toby was going to be the comedy relief. But sometimes Toby, because he's so funny, he has some of the serious, heartfelt moments. My mom has passed on, so just knowing that you could have somebody who just says, I asked your parent for permission to marry you. But I also love the fact when Kate realized that she didn't need something from her dad because they were getting married at the cabin and her dad is the cabin. The wedding, I think, is when we saw how the big three will always be diehard and do whatever they can for each other. When Kevin and Randall tried finding every little thing that was their dad's in the cabin so Kate would have something to get married with him. It just goes to show how this relationship, the brother and sister relationship that they have on the show, is so realistic.
I also like Toby, and I like how the show kind of depicts Kate's, Kate was very much daddy's girl, and they don't underpin that enough. It comes out very, very much, and how, she's the one still with the urn with his ashes, and what you find out is that it's a little Freudian in a sense, but Toby kind of carries the torch of being what Jack was for Kate in some aspects, but that's true to life. You hear the saying, you always marry some version of your parents, right? And it's interesting to me that they actually kind of focus on that with each of the spouses, but in this particular season it was Toby. And Toby also, I enjoy the Vegas bachelor party episode and how he just so desperately he didn't care about the friends that he had invited, his sort of geek friends from the way back. He was much more about getting the approval and support of Kevin and Randall, and how they were kind of so self-focused, and basically Kate had to remind them, look, you dummies, he wants you. You're the people that he wants, and I want you to be there, so fix it. And it's those moments that really, it's those small moments that make this show a little bit more elevated.
They don't ever neglect the small moments. They're very important to their storytelling, and I think that may be one of the keys to why this show is so good.
One of the scenes with Toby that I was reminded of in this season that I loved was when Kate and Rebecca had a blow up, and Rebecca goes to Toby for sympathy, and then Toby stands up for Kate, and then ends up in turn earning the respect of Rebecca. I thought that scene was just beautifully written, beautifully acted, very powerful. You see the balance of power tilting and leaning one way to the other, and the resolution was a mutual respect that I really just appreciated so much in that moment.
I also, speaking of these in-law moment scenes, when they're all in the rehab session, I love how Beth and Toby and Miguel are at the bar and talking about what it's like to be on the outside looking in of the Pearson clan. I thought, yes, that scene was needed, because I wondered what might have been going through their minds, and they capitalized on it. Another piece of season 2 that I really love is how they explore how Miguel comes into the picture later on after Jack's death. And Kevin actually kind of confronts him in the moment and says, was this going on when my father was alive? And Miguel was like, no. There was no one outside of Jack and Rebecca. They were one. But when Jack left, Rebecca and I had holes in our heart. And now I love your mother, but I just thought, wow, we needed that scene too, because I was like, what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, why did Miguel, what happened here?
Yeah, you're really mad at Miguel for a while.
Yeah,
You really
I
are.
hated him at first. You're like, you bastard, you broke up Jack and Rebecca.
Yeah, well, I wanted to touch on too, Kylie, your comment about the in-laws getting together. It actually reminds me a lot of my family. My mom and my dad's sister's husband, so her brother-in-law, they get along really well, and that like really reminded me of that moment, because my mom and dad have been married the longest, and on my dad's side, actually on both sides of the family, there's a lot of divorce. So they've bonded quite a bit, because my aunt has been married to her husband now for a while, but that really reminded me of that moment, and it kind of goes back to the show just being so relatable. But yeah, I'm really glad that they did do that, because that family is so tight-knit that to then introduce these outside people, like how do those people feel in this situation where everybody is so close?
I love how in the scene with Toby and Beth and Miguel, where Toby compared them to like Star Wars, and they were on the outside as Chewbacca. I guess, and two of them, Beth and Toby, were Chewbacca, and the big three were Leia and Luke and Darth Vader. That was pretty funny.
I like how Beth and Miguel pretty much told Toby, you'll never be in. Because Beth and Miguel have pretty much, like, been there since the beginning. And so, I mean, I love how Toby acted like, oh, I'm trying to get in, I'm trying to figure him out. And Beth was like, good luck, Sparky, not going to happen. We've been trying. So, like,
coming from Beth make it even stronger.
But
I know, and I love Beth. Is probably we haven't talked about her a lot, but Beth is probably my second favorite character. And I think her and Randall's relationship make her my second favorite character. But just how it's amazing how when Beth talks about this family, because she loves this family so much, but she hates them all at the same time. Like she loves and hates Kevin so much that it's his super hot TV annoying needs to get a life brother. Like, just how she describes them is amazing, and she's a wonderful actress. But I feel like if we didn't have Beth, we wouldn't have Randall be as strong as he is. Like, I think Beth and Randall play to that Jack and Rebecca pair very, very well.
Yeah, the show is super strong with not only the casting in general, but the couples or the counterpoint casting. It's like we love Jack, but would Jack be as good without Rebecca? And, Randall and Beth. Like, it's all about the couples and just their chemistry as a twosome, but also as the greater Pearson family as a whole is just some of the best I've seen on television in my lifetime.
This show is like one of those wooden puzzles where you have to have all the pieces exactly right for it to stand up and stay as a structure. If any one of those pieces is missing, it falls apart. I feel like this show is like that. Every character has such a key, integral part. There's not a single throwaway in it. Every single person is so important to the overall story and has something to contribute.
I feel like if things continue to go the way that they will, that maybe these other key people, they'll keep us so close that eventually, towards the end or maybe sooner, they will be similar. Like they'll always be the Pearsons big three will always be the big three, but I feel like they just will bring the other ones in to where there's a sense that they're close to as important.
Everything with this show is just so intentional. I know I said that with the music. Everything is so well thought out and so intentional. It's just, that's what just blows my mind, is how much the writers care about everything that's happening with this show and every single aspect of it.
I want to be in some of the initial reads of the episodes the first time that the cast sees the script and the direction that their character is taking. I can imagine there's some pretty fantastic reactions in those moments.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually my secret, not so secret dream would be to be part of a television show and watch it from Genesis to final print, and especially one like This Is Us that is so dependent upon character moments that don't happen in a chronological order. I think it would be a fascinating thing to watch. And in table reads, I wonder what these scripts look like and what the stage or the screen directions sound like when they're being read, because it does jump from one time period to another time period. It's got to be so much fun. And I just want to, like I said, I've gone down the YouTube rabbit hole. I just want to be friends with all of these people. I don't care. Like, can you invite me to the bar? If you're listening, This Is Us cast, any of you, tweet at us at CPU Podcast and invite me to the bar. And then we can all have a talk about your television show, because it's so special. It doesn't happen very often. Maybe once a decade there's a show like this that just seems to have everything magically going on for it, and it's true quality. And the fact that it's on NBC is just amazing. They got themselves out of a slump with This Is Us.
Yes, they did. One of the things I hope that they've done is they filmed some of those table reads, and then when this show is done and they release the box set, they have those filmed table reads as a special feature, because they would be intriguing to watch. And as Kristen said, see the reactions of the actors as they're learning some of their own backstory at points.
Yeah, that would be fun. Is there anything that we haven't discussed, anything that we haven't covered that you want to talk about with respect to season 2?
There's so many things that happen in this show that it's easy to overlook something when you're talking about it, especially as we're all agreeing.
I guess there was one thing that I was just kind of curious. Is just we don't have to spend too much time on this, but I from season 1 even into season 2, as we looked a little bit at the relationship between Beth and William, I enjoyed the relationship. I think there was some confusion for me as to after she met him, why it took so long for her to be comfortable with him and believing that he wasn't going to try to ruin Randall's life. Because, like, the way that she talked to him, obviously, when she first sat down with him that one night, she tried to be nice, and she was kind of nice, but then that one moment when Randall comes into the kitchen and he kind of stops just before she's able to give the answer to the question, do you want him to leave? Or something like that, and she stops. But anyway, just the relationship between Randall and Beth and how she questioned him, she's protective, obviously, and that's fine. I think that's important and it's great. But I feel like there were so many moments there where he seemed like there was nothing to fear, and she still kind of had this real hesitancy about him that she wanted to kind of be able to take care of it and nip it in the bud, I guess. It's a good conversation piece.
So I'll answer that.
I think she...
Oh,
sorry.
I was going to
say... All I was going to say is Go.
Okay. Well, because I was the one who previously mentioned in this conversation that the show does a very fine job of mirroring how the spouses and the significant others in the relationships have similarities to the parents, whether it's the parents, it's the parents of the previous generation. And I think the show is very deliberate about even setting up the idea that there's a lot, despite the differences and despite the fact that Rebecca is white and Beth is black, and despite the fact that they might come from completely different family upbringings, there is a similar fierce devotion to Randall that those two women share. And Beth's introduction to William comes from a place of protectiveness, but also Randall that's one of the themes that comes out in this season particularly. Randall gets so excited so quickly about something new, especially something that is so tied to his heart. In his biological family was season 1's big thing, and season 2's big thing is the fostering situation that Beth keeps telling him to slow his roll. It's because he's going faster than she is. So it's kind of, I think, a couple of competing tensions. I think she's protective of him in the way that Rebecca is protective of him, but also she is his balance. Randall is so passionate so quickly about things that Beth brings him back down to earth and says, now hold on, he might be your biological dad. You hardly know this man. What we do know is that he left you at a fire station and that he had some pretty big demons he was dealing with. But what the show also shows is that Beth grows to really become very affectionate toward William and even feels true grief until she receives his postcard posthumously that William got a chance to say goodbye to Randall, but not to her. So I think you see that full journey with Beth. Eddie, did you want to add now?
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay. So
You said exactly.
To your point, though, I wonder, as much as he didn't know about the reality of who his real father was, I feel like the show, I would imagine, you may find out more in the future, but he probably had many moments and long periods of time thinking about all of these scenarios. His dad could be terrible, his dad could be good. So, yeah, it was kind of new. And I think to Beth, he's new because he just came out there. But I think to Randall, maybe he'd been thinking about this kind of stuff so much that it just felt so natural to him.
Well, sure. But then Randall brought him home immediately. And
that was massive.
Yeah, introduced, they have 2 young girls. And Beth is just being protective mama. Just being, you just brought this strange man into my house with my girls. Like, what are you doing,
That is true.
So I think the show and the writers earned every minute between Beth and William, as they've earned all the other ones. I think they were very deliberate about showing that she had a right to be suspicious, but that she also ended up having a true love for him, as the rest of the family did. Anything else you want to say about season 2? I don't want to limit you. I'm just going with the moderation flow.
I have another interesting thing when I was watching when Kate and Rebecca, kind of their relationship when Kate was younger, something just kind of random that I thought was kind of weird is when they were talking at one point, Kate found out when she was, I think close to when her father died. She didn't know until then that her mother had done singing with a group when she was younger. I was kind of surprised. I guess I thought that would be one of those things that she would have known by this point in her life, because obviously Kate liked to sing, and her mom must have known. She didn't know maybe how good she was, but she knew that she liked to sing, and that there wouldn't have been a conversation up to that point about how her mother used to sing with a group. That seemed a little bit odd to me. I don't know, but if anybody else... That was not a huge point, but I thought it was interesting when she said, I didn't know that, Mom, or when I was younger, Rebecca said, when I was younger, I used to sing with this group, and I was like, wow, she didn't know that?
I kind of thought of it as Kate was so connected and focused on her father when she was young. I felt like it was almost a moment from Kate's perspective, maybe she knew it, but she didn't hear it, or it didn't really register on her radar at all.
I also kind of maybe took it as more of Rebecca didn't necessarily talk about it a lot, kind of trying not to overshadow what Kate was doing. I think that was kind of what ended up being kind of a catalyst from some other stuff, was that Kate was going to go sing in the talent show or something, and then she decided not to because she thought her mom was so good. So I could kind of see that more as Rebecca didn't want to take away some of that passion that Kate had for that, and so she just kind of stood back and watched her do her thing, and they just didn't really talk about it that much. Their relationship has always been kind of distant.
I think some of that was Rebecca's desire not to be to Kate as Rebecca's mother was to her. So she pulled back a little because her mother was so overbearing.
I just want to mention that the guy who played the pianist in the band, who asked her to be part of the band, was played by Sam Trammell, who some of us know from True Blood. He played Sam on True Blood.
Yeah, True Blood.
I'm here for all of your TV connections.
Yes, you are.
Also makes me sound extra addicted. But that's why I'm here.
I do. There have been 3 characters on this show from True Blood. Yeah, there have.
Up through these 2 seasons or later? No spoilers.
They're up to these 2 seasons.
Who else?
Wasn't William's lover was also on True Blood?
Oh yeah, Dennis O'Hare, you're right. I think it...
Thank you.
Well, was he on
True yes, Blood? The only weak point through 2 seasons.
He was on American Horror Story anyway. I don't remember him on True Blood, but Alex, I believe you.
He was on True Blood.
Okay.
Alex Trebek would be
He was gay on there too.
Oh, that's right. He was Alexander's.
He was a king.
Yeah, and he was his lover for a while, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember now. True Blood, True Blood really lost me by the end, so I've repressed a lot of it.
Oh, I know.
What was the third one?
Oh, I can't talk to you about that.
Oh, that was later this
Sorry. After I said it, I was like, what? Yep, wrong.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Anything else you want to cover? So, of course, they've all kept watching, and we don't really ask that question in a Catching Up series. But what I will ask to tie us off is, as if this is going to be any doubtful, I'm sure the suspense is killing us. Would you recommend This Is Us following season 2? Why or why not?
No, not at all. I hate it. It's awful.
Emily, I don't believe you.
You lie, madam.
I do.
1 to 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes.
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 Yeah. Keep watching. Do it. Start it.
And for a show that has been so good through 2 seasons, to know from watching and being up to date that it continues to even get better, I cannot say enough how much you should keep watching this. This has a even steeper curve than the COVID does.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
That COVID curve's pretty steep. I don't know about that. But I will say that I have already started mentioning it to people that are in our Couch Potatoes fold, that I'm like, I think you would actually like this show. And sometimes I get annoyed responses like, yes, 10 people have already told me to watch this show and I haven't watched the show. I said, well, now you're hearing it from me, and isn't my stamp of approval like something for you? Like, go watch This Is Us. I think you would like it. Like, my sister is one of them, and Sarah is one of them, and of course they say, I'm already watching too much TV for this podcast as it is. I'm like, you don't have to watch it for the podcast. It's extracurricular. We have a panel.
Gotcha.
So.
I was just telling somebody else about it today. Lindsay, our friend Lindsay, I was just talking to her today. She's like, oh, what podcast are you doing tonight? I'm like, This Is Us. She's like, I haven't watched it yet. I'm like, you need to watch it right
Oh my
now.
God,
Just
she was
Like
on
Lindsay doesn't watch the show.
Lindsay, if you're listening, watch the show.
The show. Like,
Tim and
I'm
Lindsay,
shocked.
it's on their list, but they have not started watching it yet, and I told them they need to go watch it now.
It needs to be
Right
at the top
now.
of the list immediately.
We're
I
all
should send her.
I have yet to find somebody that has watched this show that doesn't like it. I've not come across that person yet. Another
Not a single
testament to it
person.
is that all the other networks are trying to find a
Their
way
This
to do
Is Us.
something that is This Is Us.
Everybody keeps trying to copy. It's
Trying
the
to.
same with lots of
Yep.
shows. Medical shows.
Falling short.
Just like they did with Friends. Friends spurred a ton of tried copycat shows, and none of them
Yeah.
worked as
ER.
Although New Girl was a pretty nice Friends for millennials.
I do
Right,
like that girl.
in time of when it was on the air. Like This Is Us, there's a million little pieces. The Council of Dads. I could keep going. Yeah.
Unlike the Council of Dads.
I was surprised they canceled that.
Well,
Sorry.
they introduced it. Wasn't it on the same network?
No, I think that was
Was that
CBS.
No, CBS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
surprised
I
they
think
canceled
Million Little Things or Million Little Pieces is on NBC.
No, Million
it's
Little Things is
ABC.
ABC.
ABC. That's right, because I see it when I watch Grey's Anatomy.
I like it. I'll give A Million Little Things a thumbs up. It's pretty good, but it's not the same by any means.
I can't
No,
watch
but it's their attempt to hit that same vein of
Ensemble.
storytelling.
Yeah, nothing will come close. This is in a league all its own.
There's no crying in baseball.
Ah, nice.
But there's a lot of crying in This Is Us.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about This Is Us Season 2?
It leads to season 3.
Thanks, Spencer.
You're welcome.
Keep
I don't
watching.
know. That's not your best one.
No, definitely not.
But Spencer is right. Season 2 does lead to Season 3, not only for This Is Us, but but for our discussions about This Is Us. So we don't want to get like too focused in because there's so much more. So since there's so much more, we'll leave it here, and I'll thank Kristen L. and Emily and Kristen T. and Jared and Spencer and Eddie for joining me once again to talk about This Is Us Season 2. And because we've talked about This Is Us Seasons 2, it's time to roll the credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website, and we're now on Patreon at patreon.com/couchpotatoesunite. If you really love us, pledge your support by becoming one of our United Couch Potatoes as we grow our little sofa-populated corner of the world. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, our Patreon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and our Patreon to stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, all available seasons of This Is Us are available to stream on Hulu currently. In the meantime, our This Is Us panel will next reconvene, very shortly in fact, to talk Season 3 of the series in Episode 3 of our 4-part catch-up miniseries. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Goodbye.